He's like...
You guys are funny because you totally missed the lens. Like, we didn't get any of that.
Yeah, you did. Hello, Internet, and welcome back to Cinema Brawls. My name is Matt, this is Daniel, and a man that needs no introduction, but is going to get one anyway, this is Jake.
Dude, you totally ruined my introduction.
That was great.
Alright, cool. Today, we're talking about A Quiet Place versus... what was it?
Role models.
Role models. Oh, is this the role models episode?
This is the role models
This is the role models episode.
Everybody get the fetch ready. Now what?
Brawl?
Quiet Place is a 2018 movie directed by and starred by John Krasinski, as well as his wife Emily Blunt and some kids. And it's great. It's about a family living in a post-apocalyptic world taken over by monsters that are super good at hearing, so any noise whatsoever will attract them.
They're also super spooky.
Yes. And it has a sequel coming out this year, so that's cool. Happy New Year, by the way. This video is coming out on New Year's Day.
It's pretty dope. Anyway, Role Models is a movie directed by David Wayne that was made in 2008 and stars Paul Rudd, the great Paul Rudd.
We get it. You like Paul Rudd?
No, that's an understatement. All right. And Sean William Scott, or as some people like to pronounce it, Sean.
Oh my gosh. Can't believe I fell for that. Alright, let's get into our first impressions. Daniel?
So I watched Role Models for the first time recently, and it was better than I expected it would be.
More than we can ask for.
I really did like A Quiet Place, though. A Quiet Place was terrifying, especially seeing it in theaters and having it be so quiet that you're afraid to eat popcorn. It was insane. I really like A Quiet Place. That's probably what I'm going to be rooting for this video.
I'm going to take the opposite sound, but for kind of similar reasons. I love Quiet Place. I thought it was an amazing original movie. But I also love Paul Rudd and comedies more. And so I'm going to go for Role Models.
And I, as always, am in the middle.
Excellent.
Because I like both of them for very different reasons, and we'll get into it, shall we? On your mark, get set, Brawl! Let's start with the story. I am probably, like I said, I'm on the fence, but no more than with the story. Because I think, as with all kind of raunchier comedies like Role Models is, I think it has a very simple premise. The point is the guys have to be arrested somehow and go to this Big Brother program for their community service. And then humor happens. And so it's like a weak premise with lots of stuff happening around it, whereas A Quiet Place has a really strong premise, really high concept. Ooh, end of the world monsters that you can't make a noise, you know. But then there's just a couple of things that happen around that. So it's like a give and take. Small premise, lots of things. Big premise, not lots of things.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. And I think I'm kind of going to vouch for both. I'm probably going to give a lot of good and bad for both movies when I'm describing this. I think Quiet Place, what I like about its story is it's very original.
Very original.
The monsters were original. Don't really see anything like that. I mean, it was written by John Krasinski, right?
Mm-hmm. His first writing and directing.
Yeah, and he just
There's also two other people that have writing credit on there, just so we're clear there were multiple people working on this script, but it was John Krasinski who penned the story itself.
The point is, when you can make such a good movie with little to no dialogue the whole time, I hate movies that don't speak. But this one was amazing to the point where nobody in the theater wanted to breathe or like open their snacks. Trust me, I tried to get into my snacks.
And you just felt uncomfortable the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, is my popcorn eating going to get them killed?
Right, exactly. And it's just because everybody else was so quiet too, like, and they just did an insanely good job with that. Whereas Role Models is a little bit of a raunchier comedy, but I think as far as raunchy comedies go, that one had a much better story and premise, and it really wasn't as bad as it could have been.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Especially with the guy from American Pie as the second lead.
And honestly, yeah, but I feel like, you know, that one was a very heartfelt story that had a lot to tell about it.
That's true.
As far as the story goes, I think, again, Role Models was better than I thought it was going to be. I went into this movie with super low expectations and was pleasantly surprised at how good it was. It's not great. It's fine. It's okay. I laughed a couple of spots, which is kind of all you can ask for in these movies because I am weird. But with A Quiet Place, it's kind of like what you said, where it was, with Role Models, there was a lot of stuff happening, and I kind of felt like it was not as focused. It was, okay, well, what if this? And they worked it into the movie versus A Quiet Place, which was a more tight premise. It was a much tighter script, more well executed, I think. It was a very good, low budget, easy movie. And when I say easy, of course, no movie's easy, but it was, you know, there weren't as many actors, there weren't as many locations, there weren't as many logistical things, but they did a lot with what they had, and I appreciated that aspect of it, and I liked the story of A Quiet Place better.
Jake, what do you vote?
Keep your secrets, wizard. I'm gonna vote for Quiet Place.
I think I will also vote for Quiet Place.
I as well. Alright, well, let's move on to characters. Now, this is one part that I do think that Role Models did excel well at, is I liked how all of the characters started out as their archetypes, but then kind of grew into their more, for lack of a better term, character-y characters. Like the guy from American Pie, Paul Rudd, they started out as these awful people, but then you gotta see some good sides and you gotta actually feel for these characters, especially the guy from American Pie. I never thought that I'd like his arc, but he pulled off a good character arc with the kid, and I had fun with him and how he like didn't take crap from the kid.
That was great.
But the kid, oh man, that kid was hilarious. I had fun with that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Paul Rudd and Sean William Scott both grew grew from their kids as much as those kids grew from them.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone as a group just kind of grew together simultaneously.
There were arcs for sure.
Right, and then they all came together at the end, which is what I like about that character development, that movie, is that it was all happening at the same time because of each other.
Yeah.
And I thought it was cool to kind of watch happen.
For sure.
Whereas in A Quiet Place, they all are just scared apocalypse survivor number 1, scared apocalypse survivor number 2, John Krasinski.
I will say, like, John Krasinski did make me cry.
He did. He had a lot of character.
That kid with his daughter.
Yeah.
And like how, he was sad and upset over the loss of their littlest kid, and he was struggling over that, but at the end of the day, he did really care for all of his kids and was willing to sacrifice himself for that.
Absolutely. I think the character growth in that movie was all based around the daughter and John Krasinski.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Even though the other, family characters
sign
in there.
language could make me cry.
Right. But it was, those two together, came up with a pretty good character arc.
It kind of, I talked about it with the stories. I liked the characters in Role Model. I still think that because it was a tighter script and the characters were written, for lack of a better term, better in Quiet Place versus a Role Model, I still think I'm going to vote for Role Models for characters. Or for Quiet Place for characters. I'm sorry.
I'm going to vote for role models for characters because I think they have better arcs.
I think so too. I like the characters more in role models, but that's not to discredit Quiet Place at all. The characters are still very good for people who don't even speak.
It's true. Rewatchability.
Rewatchability.
Which,
keep forgetting.
I mean, they're both rewatchable for different ways. Obviously, role models is the comedy, something that's easily digestible. You want to watch so you can pick up on the humor and just have a good time with. But I think Quiet Place has points where you can rewatch it because you can pick up on speculative things like, oh, maybe what if John Krasinski was working on this hearing aid the whole time? Or maybe there's some other background hidden thing, whatever.
What's a Quiet Place rated? Is it R or is it PG-13?
It's PG-13.
No, that's because they, yeah.
But
I'm pretty sure.
I think Quiet Place is a very simple movie, which, I mean, gives a lot of points in a lot of other categories, but I think...
Especially for a horror movie, it's very digestible for a horror movie.
Right, yeah. That's what I'm saying, and it's awesome. And I've watched both movies a couple times this year, but I think because it's such a simple movie, there's not a lot more to pick up on through a rewatch. I think you kind of get it a couple times, and you get most of what you
get the gist of it for sure.
Right, not saying that it's still not fun to watch afterwards. I just don't think it gives a lot more after.
Yeah, the same could be said about role models because this premise again is simple, and I mean, I guess if you watched it once a day for a week, the jokes would get kind of old.
Sure,
but I mean.
But no one's gonna watch role models once a day for a while.
I don't think anybody's gonna watch either of these once a day for a week.
See, the thing is with in my thing, I think that role models was better than I expected. It's still a little bit too crude of humor for my taste, and so I would much rather watch A Quiet Place.
I'm baffled by because you make all the sex jokes in this group.
I know.
Making the jokes is different than receiving the jokes.
I still think role models is more rewatchable. I think there's just more that it gives, and I think it's funnier.
I would agree. I think role models is probably will take it for me on this one.
So merits in genre with A Quiet Place, because A Quiet Place happened, we got other movies like
sensory deprivation movies.
Yeah, like specifically movies of kind of that same thing. Where like sensory deprivation movies like Don't Breathe, Bird Box, those kind of horror movies that I know Don't Breathe came out before A Quiet Place, but it still was a good addition to that subgenre of horror movies. Mm-hmm. Hush is another example. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I think that it did better for its subgenre than Role Models did for its...
Role Models didn't do anything for its subgenre.
It's just a
good movie, yeah. It's a raunchy comedy with Paul Rudd.
I will also say about...
all the raunchy comedies.
I will say as well about A Quiet Place. When you get those types of movies, like you have those horror movies that are like, oh, this monster is supernatural and unstoppable, and it's like a mystery of how to stop them. And that's the case here, but these monsters are also taking away a very key part of your person, one of your senses. And like it just, even though the monster may not be as menacing or mysterious as Freddy Krueger, for example, it's still really intimidating because how do you beat something when it takes away such an important part? You don't have your full arsenal to fight them, and I think that just increases the intensity, and those movies are great.
Technically, they still had all their senses, they just couldn't make noise.
They just couldn't.
They're trying to deprive.
Man, when that lamp fell over while they're playing the game...
That was so loud.
So loud.
Holy crap, the whole movie's silent, all of a sudden...
Exactly like that.
I think it's pretty obvious that Quiet Place takes this one. It actually, made an impact, whereas Role Models is just a funny comedy that you can kind of wander upon.
It made so much of an impact, in fact, that single story is getting a sequel, like a year later.
It's true.
Year and a half later.
I'm voting for Quiet Place.
Yeah, same.
Me too.
All right, well, it's 2-2. Which
and
means
this is why we came up with the fifth category.
Ah.
Because we don't like ties.
They're very constricting.
Shut up, Matt.
Emotional impact.
Let's face it, guys. While Role Models had a very heartwarming story, I mean, you've been saying it this whole time. The entire theater was silent.
Yeah.
The whole time you were afraid to open your snacks because it just had that much of an impact.
Because of the emotion of terror and fear that the whole movie created the whole time.
The intensity, Yeah, that's all I got is intensity. No more adjectives.
Where Emily Blunt is about to give birth while the aliens are coming after.
Literally around the corner.
Oh my goodness. So scary.
Right. And kind of like you were saying before, like, if the movie can create a scene where one of the scariest parts is a lamp falling over, that's pretty impressive. Because that's generating the terror that the movie wants you to feel. And, I mean, that's the emotion of the movie. There it is.
And I mean,
it's present and it's strong the whole time. Not to say role models didn't do that, but, I mean, come on. It wasn't anywhere close.
So, emotional impact?
It's got to go to Quiet Place. I mean, come on.
Which makes Quiet Place our big winner. I forgot to clap there for a sec.
But then you remembered.
Right. Thanks to you.
Thanks.
And now you all know that A Quiet Place is better than Role Models. Also thanks to me.
I mean, come on, that was pretty close for role models.
For role models, yeah.
We did give it a lot of credit.
Yeah.
But it deserves it. Role Models is a good movie.
I like that we try to remain fair.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and pick out our next movies. What's next?
I have no idea.
What will they brawl next?
Oh, wait, hold on.
Jake, what do we got?
Pitch Perfect.
Versus The Revenant.
That's going to be fun.
Great, now I have to watch The Revenant.
Revenant was dope.
That's the only Oscar Leo won.
He won it for Titanic.
Actually, Revenant is another movie where there's very little sound.
Why do I feel like this was the exact same Brawl? Raunchy comedy versus
movie where nobody talks.
attention-filled. Yeah. Catch us next time when we brawl against The Revenant and Pitch Perfect.
Bye.